Israel in the earthly kingdom with Christ on the throne. Where do you get the church? Well, the 12 disciples on 12 thrones over the 12 tribes of Israel. Won't the 12 tribes of Israel be the church? Why? Has there been anything anywhere from Genesis chapter 12 up to this point that would say that we're no longer talking about physical Israel and the physical 12 tribes of Israel? No, nothing. You just arbitrarily decide, well, this has to be the church, because the disciples will be involved in the church later, and if they're on 12 thrones, the 12 tribes then must refer to the church. And all of a sudden you have to look, well, why would you call the church 12 tribes? Well, 12, let's
Stay
see.
to the right T11 north in direction of Al
And the
Sharjah.
12 tribes of Israel, that was all of Israel, so 12 tribes now refer to all the church. Let's say with that kind of hermeneutics in interpreting Scripture, anything can be anything. He goes on to give another example. Paul writes that the believer in Christ is the true Jew. That's not an accurate statement of what Paul says. Look over in Romans chapter 2, verse 29, which is the verse that he uses. Romans chapter 2. We're going to look at verses 28 and 29. Now this writer says, Paul writes that the believer in Christ is the true Jew.
In 300 meters,
That's not what Paul
stay
writes.
to the right.
Paul writes that the Jew who is a believer in Christ is the true Jew. Paul does not say that every believer in Christ is a
Stay
true
to the
Jew.
right to Al Thawiba
He
Street.
says every Jew who is a believer in Christ is a true Jew. We see in the Old Testament, God elected or chose the nation Israel. But not every Jew who was part of the nation Israel had a true spiritual relationship with God. In the days of Elijah the prophet, God said there are only 5,000 who have not bowed the
In
knee
200
to
meters,
Baal.
at the roundabout,
Paul
take the third
quotes from
exit.
that over in Romans chapter 9. So within the nation Israel, there were 5,000 true Jews who were not only part of the physical nation, but also had a spiritual relationship with the living God. So Paul, in chapter 2 of Romans, has been talking about the spiritual condition of the Jews under sin and their need of salvation. The Jews had come to believe it was enough to be a physical Jew to get saved. You're a physical Jew, you get circumcised, you go through the sacrifices, that does it. They lost sight of the condition of the heart. Paul says in verse 28, For he is not a Jew who is one outwardly, neither is circumcision that which is outward in the flesh. But he is a Jew who is one inwardly, and circumcision is that which is of the heart by the Spirit, not by the letter. So we'll say, well, see, doesn't that say that it's not physical? It does say that being a physical Jew is not enough, but that's not new. The prophets in the Old Testament carried the message of God to Israel. Be circumcised in your hearts. It's always been the intention that the physical circumcision would reflect the spiritual circumcision of the heart. It's never been enough to be a physical Jew. But physical Jews who have a spiritual relationship by faith in God, they are the true Jews that are in line of the fulfillment of the promises given to Abraham. And nothing about when I as a Gentile became a believer, I became a true Jew. I became a saved Gentile. But those physical Jews in the line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that believe in Jesus Christ as the Messiah, they are true Jews who have a spiritual relationship with the living God. That's always been the case. Old Testament, New Testament, coming tribulation.